So, imagine this. A man, Job, who has lost absolutely everything, is sitting with his friends. You'd think they'd be there for comfort, right? Well, their sympathy is about to run out. We're diving into chapters 11 through 15, and this is where polite condolences just explode into a raw, painful debate about God, suffering, and justice. Seriously, this is where the story gets incredibly intense. So here's our game plan. We're going to walk through this debate as it unfolds. It kicks off with a really harsh accusation from Job's third friend, Zophar. Then we'll get into Job's powerful clapback and his desperate appeal to God. From there, we'll dive into his heartbreaking lament on the human condition, right before the argument circles back, and trust me, it's even more heated the second time around. All right, let's jump right into chapter 11. Job has just finished these passionate, soul-bearing speeches, and now his third friend, a guy named Zophar, finally pipes up. And unlike the other two who kind of tiptoed into it, Zophar just comes in swinging. He delivers the most direct and severe rebuke Job has gotten so far. Wow. So Zophar basically hears Job's claims of innocence and just tosses them right out the window. He's not just saying, Job, you sinned. He's actually arguing that God is being merciful. His logic is just brutal. He's telling Job that this immense suffering is only a fraction of the punishment he actually deserves for all his secret sins. What a thing to say to a grieving friend. For Zophar, it all comes down to this simple, unbreakable formula. If you're suffering, it's because you've sinned. Period. He sees God's justice as this clean, almost mathematical equation. He tells Job, just repent, get rid of your sin, and then, and only then, will things get better. There's just no room for mystery, no gray area in his worldview. And this really gets to the heart of how all three friends are thinking. It's a concept called retribution theology. It's this idea that life is a neat cause and effect system run by God. You do good things, you get blessed. You do bad things, you get cursed. You can see why it's appealing. It makes a chaotic world feel orderly and predictable. But it's also exactly why they can't wrap their heads around Job's situation. An innocent man suffering, it just doesn't compute. Zophar's approach is really a huge warning for us. It shows the danger of trying to box God into our simple formulas. And it shows just how easy it is to judge other people's pain from a distance. His brand of comfort is all theory, no compassion, and it's incredibly damaging. Zophar thinks he's defending God, but really, he's just defending his own small, rigid idea of God. Okay, let's see how Job responds to this. Moving on to chapter 12. After Zophar's verbal smackdown, Job comes back with this long, powerful response. And he doesn't just defend himself, he actually goes on the attack, basically telling his friends their so-called wisdom is worthless. I mean, you can just feel the sarcasm dripping from these words. Job is basically saying, oh wow, you guys have it all figured out, don't you? I guess when you three die, all wisdom on earth will just disappear. He's mocking their incredible arrogance and showing everyone that he's not just some passive victim here. He is ready to fight back against their self-righteousness. And this is where Job draws a really important line in the sand. His friends are leaning on human tradition, on wisdom passed down from their elders. Job's counterpoint is, yeah, that's great, but you're missing the point. He argues that true, ultimate wisdom and strength don't belong to humans or our traditions. They belong to God alone. And God's wisdom, it's absolute, powerful, and way beyond what we can understand. Job then basically says, hey, just open your eyes and look at the world. He points out that robbers often get rich, and those who provoke God seem to live securely. He sees that in the real world, bad things happen to good people all the time. This reality totally shatters his friend's tidy little theology. He's not denying God's power. He's just saying it doesn't operate by their simple, predictable rules. So, after taking apart his friend's arguments, Job's focus shifts in a big way. In chapter 13, he pretty much turns his back on them. He's done trying to reason with these guys. Now, he wants to take his case to the highest court imaginable, to God himself. And man, Job does not mince words. He calls his friends forgers of lies and worthless doctors. He's accusing them of completely misrepresenting God with their simplistic arguments, offering empty words instead of any real healing or comfort. As far as Job is concerned, their advice is actually worse than just being silent. This right here is the heart of what Job wants. He's tired of these flawed human go-betweens. He is absolutely convinced that if he could just get a direct audience with God, the one true judge, he could plead his case and prove his integrity. He's longing for real justice, not the warped version his friends are offering. And this brings us to one of the most famous, most powerful verses in the entire book. It's such a stunning paradox. In one breath, Job expresses this deep, unwavering trust in God, even if it kills him. And in the very next breath, he fiercely declares that he's going to stand his ground and defend his innocence. It's this incredible mix of faith and fight, of total trust and stubborn tenacity, all at once. Okay, so after that incredible peak of defiant faith, the tone in chapter 14 just plummets. Job's attention turns away from his friends, away from his legal case with God, and he starts to contemplate the very nature of human life. His speech becomes this deeply moving, almost desperate lament about how short and final our lives are. You can just feel the heavy pessimism in these words. Job paints this picture of humanity as being so fleeting and fragile. He says life is short, like a flower that blooms and is immediately cut down, or like a shadow that's just gone in an instant. And it's a life that he says is defined by being full of trouble. And then he makes this powerful, just heartbreaking contrast. He looks at nature and he sees cycles of renewal. A tree that gets cut down can still sprout new life from its stump. But for a human, he sees nothing but finality. When a person dies, they're gone. It feels so permanent. This seeming lack of hope for humanity just deepens his despair. And out of this pit of despair, Job asks one of the most profound and universal questions ever. If a man die, shall he live again? And the thing is, he doesn't seem to have an answer. The question just hangs there in the air, a cry of both longing and hopelessness. It's the question at the heart of the human struggle with mortality itself. Well, the debate is not over. We are now entering round 2. Job's friends have listened to his passionate defense, his sarcasm, his despair, and they are not buying it. In chapter 15, Eliphaz, who, if you remember, was the most gentle one at the start, comes back with a rebuttal that is so much harsher and way more personal. The shift in his tone is just jarring. In his first speech, Eliphaz was almost sympathetic. He talked about a vision he had and gently tried to correct Job. But now? Oh, the gloves are completely off. He throws compassion out the window and just launches a direct attack, accusing Job of being a wicked, arrogant fool who has abandoned God. And then Eliphaz does this classic thing where he twists Job's own words against him. He takes Job's passionate defense of his own integrity and reframes it as proof of his guilt. He's basically saying, hey, we don't even need to accuse you, Job. Your own arrogant speeches and your challenges to God are all the evidence we need. You're condemning yourself. So then Eliphaz launches into this long, detailed description of what happens to a so-called wicked man. He talks about how this man suffers constant pain, lives in fear, his prosperity withers away, his family is destroyed, and every single point he makes is a thinly veiled jab aimed directly at Job. He's basically describing Job's own life and calling it the textbook fate of a sinner. This chapter really marks a total breakdown of communication. It's a sad picture of what happens when defending a theological system becomes more important than caring for a person in pain. The argument isn't leading to any kind of understanding, it's just making everyone's heart harder. It is ultimately the story of a friendship failing because it has lost its most important foundation, empathy. And this whole intense exchange really leaves us with a powerful question to think about. Job's friends, in their minds, thought they were offering righteous, God-honoring advice, but to Job, it felt like cruel, baseless condemnation. And it forces us to ask ourselves, in our own lives, when we're trying to help people who are hurting, how do we make sure our words are bringing comfort and not just more pain? Where is that line? It's something we all have to consider.